All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Oh, that's right, a privilege. Majority Whip Western, privilege.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just would like to recognize some folks here. They are with the Ag in the Classroom. We've got Rindy West from Sheridan and Andrew Jonites here from Cheyenne. They do a great job with Ag in the Classroom and getting our kids involved. So let's give them a house welcome.
Ag in the Classroom, that's a great program. Thank you, folks, for being a part of it. With that, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Representative Angelos. Hey!
Committee of the Whole, come to order. All right. Oh, okay. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 8. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 8, sponsored by Senator Baldwin, Essential Subsidy Payments to Behavioral Health Centers, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 8, Essential Subsidy Payments to Behavioral Health Centers, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clauston, Hornock, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zawannitzer. Representative Zawannitzer, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairman Zawannitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move in the Committee of the Whole rise to report it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 8 do pass. There are no standing committee amendments, and there are no current co-sponsors on the floor, so I'll be presenting this bill on short notice. We heard this bill in our committee. We've had a 3-year-long effort to work with our behavioral health centers on what we call subsidy payments that's going to initiate in 2024. As part of the previous legislation we did to ensure, we were trying to ensure kind of fairness across the system. We had, you'll see the deleted language, the total population of the geographic area served by that center, and we had this 35-mile radius. When we went to do the rules and regulations, we realized that you have certain areas of the state, let's say the university, that may have a lot of behavioral health counselors who teach at the university, but they should not be added in the matrix because they are not practicing, routinely. And so we had a town, I can probably say its name, Glen Rock, is within 35 miles of both Douglas and Casper, and was getting caught. And so we found 4 or 5 of our municipalities where we had behavioral health centers in the state that the previous law, when put into practice or put into doing rules and regs, the department said, we can't do this. And so they went back to the members of who were on the original committee who've been working on this for 4 years. And they said, hey, we just need this change in law to say the service needs demonstrated by that center. And then they then also, instead of making it a shall, they're now giving the department some discretion to not have to pay what we'd call these essential subsidies across the board in all cases. So it should save some money. It's not so bureaucratic and regulatory, and allows some flexibility to make sure we're hitting the needs out there in the behavioral health world that need to be hit without forcing money on people who certainly don't need it. Would ask for I vote.
Question being called. Those in favor of Chairman Zwaning's close the, I know, that's not right. Question, okay. Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Zwanitzer's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Bill Senate File Number 8 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, say no. Senate File 8 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 9. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 9, sponsored by Senator Baldwin. Medicaid coverage, licensed pharmacists, an act relating to the Medical Assistance and Services Act. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 9, Medicaid coverage, licensed pharmacists, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Ward. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman.
I move that when the Committee of the Whole, oh, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Zwanitzer?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move in the Committee of the Whole rise to report it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 9 do pass, and would further move the Standing Committee amendment. And seeing the co-sponsor off the floor, I'll present this one as well. And so committee, or I guess Committee of the Whole, what this does is allow Medicaid coverage for our licensed pharmacists. And basically, you know, your pharmacist normally dispense medications, but we do have times and instances, primarily when they do consults. So think about a patient who has some serious issues. They go to multiple doctors, some specialists, and they have 10 different medications they're on. In many cases, out of the goodness of their own heart right now, your pharmacist will sit that patient down and say, let's have a 15, 20-minute consult. Here are all of your medications, because the pharmacist can see all of those scripts coming in, right? And say, hey, you might want to check with your practitioner because, you know, this med interacts with this med at this dosage, and they're performing these services. And they're 15 or 30 minutes, depending on the patient in Wyoming. And they don't actually get reimbursed for doing that. And so the pharmacist came and said, we would like to be eligible, you know, to bill Medicaid for those patients to have this consult and get at least some reimbursement. We did hear the pharmacists generally believe this is part of their job and their duty and their responsibility to their patients. And it's certainly already happening. They're just not getting financially reimbursed. So that's the bill and why the bill has come to the legislature. You will see my committee put an interesting amendment on the bill that says on page 2, line 2, after pharmacist, that no Wyoming Medicaid fund shall be used to cause or procure chemical abortions in the state of Wyoming. I think that was a 5-4 motion in the committee, and would certainly be happy to stand for any questions on
Point of order.
that motion.
Point of order, what's your point?
Madam Chairwoman, I believe that this amendment is not germane to the bill and violates a single subject. I'd like to call for a Rules Committee.
Rules Committee, come to the front. So the chair rules that the amendment is germane. And where do I go from here? Any discussion on the amendment?
Madam Chair,
Representative Oakley.
I object to the ruling, and I think that it's a debatable discussion on whether this is germane. And I'll start out with noting the committee voted that it was not germane.
All right, the decision of the chair has been challenged. And so there'll be first, second reading debate rules, so it's debatable. And so the bringer of the point, original point, said that this amendment was not germane. After the Rules Committee discussed it, the chair said that she felt it was germane. And so the objection is on that point. So those that would support the objection would say that it's not germane. Those that would not support the objection would say it is germane. So as we debate this, and I'm going to go back to the individual that Representative Oakley is the one that brought the objection. And Representative Angelos, you don't have to defend your position, but you can certainly debate the issue if you wish to. So Representative Oakley, you're going to be up first because Representative Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that this broadens the scope of the bill beyond the original intent. I think that's actually fairly obvious when we're discussing Medicaid coverage for pharmacists. Nowhere in here this is, if you'll notice, under authorized services and supplies. And then we're talking about abortion. I mean, it's not something, it wasn't debated in committee. It's a different topic. It isn't part of, the services of a licensed pharmacist. That's in a different title. This is Title 42, that's in Title 35. I just think that it's incumbent on all of us to have the integrity to keep bills about what they were discussed in committee and on the floor. And I think when you look at it, we know what the word germane means, relevant. Is this relevant to what the intent of this bill was? And I think when you look at it that way, I think it's fairly obvious that this is not. So I would vote aye to overrule the chair.
And just a reminder on this, and Representative Oakley did a good job, what's being debated is the issue of germaneness. It's not the issue of the amendment itself. So the issue is whether this is germane or not. So I am not going to accept any testimony on whether the amendment itself is good. Representative Ward, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was on the committee that discussed this amendment, and I believe I was the one who suggested the amendment. The fact is that pharmacists can, in fact, dispense chemicals that could cause abortions. And the intention in our committee was that we didn't want those chemicals dispensed as part of this bill. And that is why we felt
So Representative
it was
Ward,
germane.
Representative Ward, okay.
Yes, sir.
Right there at the end, I think, yeah, get to the point of the germaneness. You were getting there. Go ahead, please finish.
The fact that pharmacists can in fact dispense chemicals that could cause abortion makes it germane to this bill.
Thank you. Representative Provenza for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the motion, so what my original concern was that this is broadening the scope of the bill, which is intended to essentially authorize services and supplies paid for Medicaid. This is what this amendment does is something that's already in statute, in a different statute, as we've heard before. And just to remind the body of our discussion last week on a similar motion where we went through the same procedure, it was found that it wasn't germane. And part of that argument that was brought by a couple speakers ago that ruled last week that an amendment wasn't germane was that the Article 3, Section 24, bill to contain only one subject, which this bill, I mean, we're amending the title on line 3 by inserting prohibiting the use of Wyoming Medicaid funds for chemical abortions. And I mean, some of those key words are not in here, were not in here before. I don't think they were the intent of the original bill. The original bill is pretty tight and did not include that. So I would argue that it violates a single subject and isn't germane to the intent of the bill.
Representative Angelos, are you're not wanting to talk? Okay. Representative Yin for the first time.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So on germaneness, if we read the text of the amendment, it says, no Wyoming Medicaid funds shall be used. So that applies to not just pharmacists. That applies to everybody who uses Medicaid funds. So the text of the amendment itself broadens the scope of the amendment. It doesn't just leave it to just services provided by pharmacists. It talks about services provided by anybody that uses Medicaid funds. This right there brings it outside of the scope. So we're talking about doctors, we're talking about hospitals, et cetera, that use Medicaid funds. It's not germane. It doesn't keep it within the scope of the title of the bill. That second clause says services provided by pharmacists. Vote aye on the motion.
Representative Jennings for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as I read through that, it's services and supplies. And certainly we're talking about pharmacists and we're talking about funding. So I'd vote no.
Representative Pendergraft, are you there? Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to echo what was just said. We're talking about, my understanding is covering licensed pharmacists, what they may and may not do, what may or may not be charged. And line 13, as was just read, said services and supplies. It seems to me that the chemicals used here would be among the supplies, and therefore I would see it as germane. Thank you.
Representative Henderson for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the plain language of the amendment, it's not relevant to the bill. The bill, in my understanding, simply adds a line there, another paragraph related to pharmacists, related to Medicaid. The content of the amendment clearly is talking about something else.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Hornock for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I look through the statute in 42-4103, authorized services and supplies, under A, services and supplies authorized for medical assistance under this chapter include, and then there are a few of those services that are listed do include caveats in those services. So I think that, I think this does apply because there are other items listed that narrow those items within that that text of the law. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody, Representative Brown for your first
First
time?
for a second, please.
Excuse me. Anybody else for their first time? Representative Bear for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
Anybody else for their first time? For their second time before the bringer of the objection? Representative Provenza for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make clear, the Rules Committee voted that this was not germane. So vote aye to vote with the Rules Committee that this is not germane and overturn the chair's motion.
Representative Bear for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the motion, and in particular, it was mentioned that this particular issue was not debated in the committee, and it's been made clear that it was debated. I just want to make sure everybody understands that this has been debated prior to arriving here. On and against the motion.
Just to make it clear, the Rules Committee, it was a close vote, and the chair they have every right to rule however they want to on that. So just be clear on Representative Angelos had the right to rule the way she did. Representative Brown for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd also like to remind the body that the body is what determines this. That's why there was an objection made. So kind of irrespective of what occurred up in the Rules Committee or the Speaker's ruling, that's our job, and we get to decide this. And so as I look at germaneness, I'm trying to figure out, as we look at the title, it's authorizing payment for services rendered by a licensed pharmacist under the Medical Assistance and Services Act. And then if I look at the actual title, or the deal going into here on page 1, line 3 of the amendment, it says prohibiting the use of Wyoming Medicaid funds for chemical abortions. And I'm thinking I can see how I could get there to making this germane, but I do believe that this becomes not germane to the entirety of the bill when you look at, as one of the other representatives mentioned, that when you start going into the statute, some of these things that are listed in here do have some segues in there. My suspicion is when those individual pieces were debated, it was probably within the scope of that bill and then the intention of that bill. And the title of that bill was probably wide enough to have those. When I'm looking at this, I do think that this opens the scope of the bill, not dramatically, but I do think that it actually takes it out of germaneness as a single subject. I think we all know how we're going to vote, so I think me talking is probably irrelevant too. But I think that this is probably going to be a close vote all the way across the board, but I do think that this does violate the single subject, not necessarily the germaneness. So vote how you will.
Representative Jennings for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So when I read that, and I'm looking at what is occurring there, what we're funding a service performed by a pharmacist. And the service is dispensing a drug, a particular drug. And so when we're talking funding and we're talking a pharmacist, to me, it seems like we're not talking about where that might go or what the other aspects of what that might be. We're being very specific to the services that are rendered by the pharmacist. So I would argue that it is germane and ask for your no vote. Sustain the chair.
Anybody else for their second time before the bringer of the objection? Representative Oakley for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vote aye. Call for the question.
Okay, so an aye vote would be an objection to the ruling of the chair. So the chair ruled that the amendment was germane. So an aye vote on this objection would be that the amendment is not germane. A no vote would be that it is germane. So all those in favor of the objection signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed, please rise. The motion to object fails 28-31. Representative Angelos, you're back in the chair.
Back on standing committee number 1.
Yep.
Amendment number 1.
I'd call for the question on Standing Committee Amendment 1 if there's no further discussion on it.
Question being called. All those in favor, say aye. Oh, sorry. All those opposed, no. Chair is in doubt. You can't really hear very well up here. So all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please stand. All those opposed? The standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Chairman Zwanitzer.
I believe the Committee of the Whole has another amendment that's coming right now.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairwoman, given my own,
Point of order?
there's been no motion, just saying.
Okay. Go ahead.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may continue.
You're sweet, thanks.
My bad.
May I continue, Madam Chairwoman?
Representative Yin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Given the previous discussion on the bill, the last amendment, I've determined that my own amendment is not germane to the bill, so I withdraw my amendment.
That amendment has been withdrawn, and we are back on the bill. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me remind you, it's a very good bill. And with the language, right, there is a legitimate cause for this, and I think it's good. I have talked to the department and some attorneys and LSO about perhaps moving the language and clarifying it to at least make it make sense as a policy decision for the body on second reading. So I'd ask you to move the bill forward, and we can have some amendments to kind of clean it up and accomplish, I think, the will of the body on where the amendment goes properly. But I'd be happy to answer any questions on actually the substance of the bill or why your local pharmacist would appreciate your aye vote.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Zwanitzer's motion that Senate when the committee of the whole rises to report, we do so with the recommendation that Senate File 9 do pass. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Senate File 9 has chairs in doubt. So, all those in favor of, am I doing this wrong? All those in favor, please stand. All those opposed? Senate File 9 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 11. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 11, sponsored by Labor, Cancer Early Detection Amendments, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 11 engrossed, Cancer Early Detection Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clauston, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Yin, Swanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock and Ward. Representative Swanitzer, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Swanitzer?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move in the Committee of the Whole rise report, it do so the recommendation that Senate File 11 do pass. There are no amendments, and would turn over the floor management of the bill to the good representative from Fremont County.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Senate File 11 amends the eligibility requirements in the reimbursement system for the Wyoming colorectal cancer early detection and prevention programs. So the amendments here change the ages. So it used to be that the national recommendations for getting screening colonoscopies was at 50. And so this bill said at 50, but those recommendations have changed now, decreased to age 45. And so this bill has been amended to just, it no longer includes actual ages. If you look on page 2, line 11, the change is that, line 8, eligibility shall be restricted to individuals who meet appropriate age requirements in accordance with the national evidence-based recommendations and are uninsured or underinsured. For persons who are underinsured, the program shall only pay expenses not covered by insurance. And so this bill does not change the amount of money that is dedicated to this program. It remains at $400,000. What happens when that $400 is used up is they stop paying for programs. So it's not something that a ceiling is going to continue to be raised. It also clarifies in that I just read about uninsured versus underinsured. So previously this bill included both of those things, uninsured and underinsured, but the change just clarifies that the program will only pay expenses not covered by insurance, where previously it didn't have that language there. Let's see, on page 3, as where on line 2, when the funds appropriated for this program are expended, the department shall cease payments under this section. And so, unless there's any questions or discussion, I would call for the question.
Question being called. Representative Klauston.
Thank you. I'm on the committee. I just want everybody to know that this is a capped fund. Even though we're lowering the age, there's a dollar limit of $400,000 a year. So once that's reached, they go on a waiting list. So even though we're lowering the age, this is a current program. We're not increasing the funding at all. Thank you.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Zwanitzer's motion that Senate File 11, when the Committee of the Whole rises, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 11 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 11 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 25. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Judiciary, District and Prosecuting Attorneys, Bar License Requirement, an act relating to district and county and prosecuting attorneys. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 25, District and Prosecuting Attorneys, Bar License Requirement, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representative Jennings. Excused, Representative Haroldson. Representative Washit, Chairman.
You heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Representative Chairman Washit?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 25 do pass, and I turn over explanation of the bill to the good PhD from over the hill.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I bring to you Senate File 25. This is a simple statutory fix to our statutes that mandate requirements for our elected prosecutors. So as general review, we currently require county attorneys to be in good standing with the bar that oversees our attorneys, but we overlooked that requirement likely by accident when we allowed for municipalities to opt in, or I guess for counties to opt in for a district attorney. And so what this does is just kind of brings it into parallel that you have to be in good standing with the bar that oversees our Wyoming attorneys. You'll see Title IX is our administration of government, and Chapter 1 is state officers. And then Article 8 takes you to our election qualifications, full-time, private practice prohibited, for what we have now, which is including our district attorneys shall be licensed attorney and a member in good standing of the Wyoming State Bar throughout the term of office for which the district attorney was elected or appointed. So this just means that you have to be in good standing. And if you fall out of good standing and you are no longer licensed under the Wyoming Bar, that you can't serve in that position. Makes sense. They make a lot of legal decisions, particularly related to criminal prosecution. And so for that, I will stand for questions.
Question being called. Representative Stivar.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Question I have, where in the Constitution does it say I have to be licensed if I want to run for a public office? This is a public office. It's under statutes that we've put on these requirements. On and against.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I'm not one of the good attorneys in the room, but from my understanding, the Bar Council is, the ultimate authority with the bar is our highest court in Wyoming. And so essentially, when somebody brings a problem, notifies the Bar Council, they have something going on with they do a You know, they listen to the problem, they go through a trial, whatever's part of that process. Essentially, you are then making, with this law, you are then making our highest court can basically overrule or flip the something that the voters did in a county, in 2 counties in our state that have district attorneys. So again, I think that this kind of treads on thin ice when it comes to the people in those counties voting to elect somebody that they put into office, and then that person can lose their position because somebody brings a complaint against them, and it kind of goes through that process. I think this is a little bit problematic, and it takes away some of the voters' privileges for what the voters want during somebody's time of office. I would recommend a no vote on this one.
Representative Jennings,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
you are camouflaged back there.
Thank you so much. So I was the no vote. I know that shocks a lot of you. I very seldom vote no unless I have a reason. And so in this case, my reasoning looks like this. The county attorney or district attorney they're elected to be an administrator. And so I understand that there's basically rules. It could be a campaign slogan, hey, I'm a member of the bar. And depending upon which bar you are a member of, might be. But to codify this and say you have to be, I would give you an example. Take the top law enforcement officer in your county and say they've been out in the car patrolling for lots of years. They have a pretty good grasp on what the law, how that works in real life. Say they want to run for this as an administrator position, an elected position. Would we say that they couldn't do that because they're not a member of the bar? And so I think, we already do that with our judicials, with our judges. And I just think this is an elected position and an administrative position. Is it a selling point or a campaign point if they are a member of the bar? Probably, they certainly could run that way. But I think about that guy at the top of the law enforcement that's where the rubber meets the road, and I think he has a pretty good grasp of the law also, and prosecutions. He's sat in a lot of courtrooms. And so, I don't know, I would just be opposed to codifying this and saying that they have to. Our constituents get to vote and say who's put in places like this. So on and against this bill.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To go back to the question about, or the concerns about our Constitution and dictating who can run or not, we have in our statutes at least clarifications, if not the determining factors that decide whether somebody can run for office or not. For example, you go to your county sheriff. Your county sheriff, while they don't have to be certified by our agency that oversees law enforcement certifications at the time that they run for office, they do have to get that certification within a year after they are elected and appointed. And that's because they need to know how to do law enforcement duties. That wouldn't be possible in these statutes or with our district attorneys, because you might have to go all the way to law school. Then after 3 years of that, you got to go past the bar, and then we can put you in. But there's not that sort of lag time for our district attorneys, and so they need to know what the law is if they're going to make decisions about who gets prosecuted or not. If you don't know the law well in that way, I don't know exactly how you can make those decisions over someone's personal liberty and freedom and whether we should put them in jail and potentially seek long prison sentences. So our statutes do clarify what you have to do to be able to run for certain offices. I believe our treasurer, some of our state offices need to have different certifications or different expertise. So just keep that in mind.
Chairman Swanitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In addition to the last speaker, our county coroners have those same requirements. If we used to, before 5 years ago, you could get elected to county coroner and you didn't have to know anything about being a coroner or death or enforcement. And so we did require, I believe 5 or 6 years ago, all of our county coroners to actually have to go get certified to be a coroner. But back to what this bill does, and I'm not sure we're all reading it the same way. So if you look in these two provisions, to get elected and stand for office, you have to be in good standing by the Wyoming State Bar. That's already in law, which means you have to be an attorney and have a law license to practice. So that requirement's already in the law. What this bill is saying that if you get disbarred during your term of office, you lose your law license, which is, I mean, it's not like they just take it away, right? If you are no longer licensed or not in good standing by the bar, you've probably done something wrong. And so that's the point, saying you get disbarred from being an attorney, should you be allowed to remain as the district or county attorney in your county? And there might be good reasons to keep that person, but I can't think of very many professions where you can lose your license to practice and we'd say you're still allowed to hold your job, right? Certainly in the hospital world that I come from, you can't lose your license to practice medicine and still be the chief medical officer of a hospital. And I would submit to you, most of our other professions, when you lose the right to actually practice and be in the courtroom or be allowed in the courtroom, it's really going to be tough to be that county or district attorney when you're not legally allowed to practice law. And so that's what this bill attempts to clarify and clean up. Not that you already says you have to be a licensed attorney in good standing at the bar to even run and get the position. What this says is if you lose your law license during your term of office, you have to give up your office without the legislature or someone else doing a removal proceeding.
Representative Hornock.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Something to consider with this is the ultimate authority for members of the bar to maintain, to keep their license is our highest court. The district attorney is actually under our executive branch. So there is a separation of powers issue with enacting this clause within the law. So we're allowing our one branch of our government to affect an elected member of another branch of our government. So please keep that in mind. This does present a problem with our separation of powers issue in our Constitution.
Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a reminder, if you're disbarred, you're unable to try and litigate cases on behalf of the people, which is what the district attorney does. And so ask yourself, does it make sense to have somebody in that office drawing that level of salary who may have been perfectly acceptable to the voters on election day, but has since been exposed for having done some serious misconduct and is now ineligible to litigate on behalf of the people? Do we still want that person drawing the salary of the office that they can't really perform?
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few speakers ago said that there was an issue with separation of powers. Our district attorneys are elected. That office is created if the county commission decides that they need them and they have a population of 60,000 or more. So this isn't under the executive branch. Same branch, they're elected. we have, as voters, probably a certain level of, I don't know, knowledge that we would expect of somebody who's instilling the law in this position, and they voted for him with a law, with their bar certification. I don't think most voters want them if they have lost it.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Provenza's motion that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File Number 25 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 25 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 31. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 31, sponsored by Judiciary. Adjacent Land Resource Data Trespass Repeal, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 31, Adjacent Land Resource Data Trespass Repeal, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representatives Haroldson, Jennings. Representative Washit, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Washit?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 31 do pass. There are no amendments, and I turn over explanation to the bill to the good professor in the back of the room.
Representative Chesick.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a simple bill. I don't know you've all heard that before, but this one really is simple. It's simply cleaning up some language from the Green Book that is no longer legally operative, and leaving it in the Green Book takes up space, but also leads to potential confusion. So a number of years ago, this body passed several bills that dealt with resource data trespass, where if you were on adjacent land and gathering resource data from other private land, that was there were two bills. One made it illegal, it made it civil liability. One made it criminally responsible. The bill was immediately challenged by several groups on First Amendment grounds that they are allowed to, from public space, they can look around and see things that are in private space, and therefore there was a First Amendment challenge. The 10th Circuit ultimately ruled that both of those statutes were unconstitutional, and on remand they were stricken as unconstitutional by the lower court. All this bill does, the important part of the bill, is really on page 3, the lines 1 and 2, the section 2. It repeals 2 sections, and those are the 2 sections that were added I think in the session of 2016 and then amended in 2017. And those are the 2 sections that were declared unconstitutional by the 10th Circuit. And all this does now, the rest of the changes in the bill are basically conforming agreements to remove references to those 2 sections that are being declared, that are being repealed by this bill. I think this is a good bill to clean things up. Leaving that language in the Green Books, even though it's not effective because it's been declared unconstitutional, can be confusing to those who are not law trained. And I'll be quite honest, it's sometimes confusing to those who are law trained. I gave my students last semester a research problem involving drones flying over public land, taking pictures of things. And in their research reports to me, a number of them cited this section, even though it was unconstitutional. It was a great teachable moment for those students to look beyond just the surface of what you see on your Lexis search. But if my semi-law trained students are confused, anybody who's not law trained is going to be very confused when they find that language in the Green Book, and therefore taking that language out of the Green Book is good for the public. So my students and I would appreciate an aye vote on this amendment, on the bill.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Chairman Washitz's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File Number 31 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 31 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 51. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 51, sponsored by Education. School Finance, Regional Cost Adjustment, an act relating to school finance. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom referred Senate File 51 engrossed, School Finance, Regional Cost Adjustment, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Clauston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermuller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 51 engrossed, School Finance Regional Cost Adjustment, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
Chairman Northrup, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 51 do pass. There is also a House Standing Committee amendment, and I move House Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 51, and we'll explain it in the bill. So the bill is to look at wages and salaries of some of the districts in the state. As you'll see on page 2, line 5, based on ADM computations, it goes in and it starts explaining some of that. We broke out a section and had made a first category in line 18, and it explains, that portion explains then how the wages will be figured at that time using attachment A and some of the other things that are in attachment A. And then on line 14, page 3, there's a second session, and that one has computed under the subdivision 1 of this paragraph, which is right above it, and shall be further adjusted by the regional cost differences as measured by the WCLI. And the WCLI, when you turn the page on page 4, line 7, and we change that to be the greater of the average of 6 consecutive annual index reports. So that then after that it says the January 1 of the immediately preceding school year, and the new language is or the semi-annual index report completed by January 1 of the immediate preceding school year. You'll see that this subdivision is repealed January 1, 2026. We struck that language because that language would have ended us up in court again. So that was a way of trying to horse the Education Committee to have another recalibration by 25. The Senate or the House Standing Committee amendment then went in and said, let's look at ADM and what's driving some of the things in ADM. And we have right now an 80%, students have to be in the classroom 80% of the time. If you have a block grant, which some districts do, and that's 4 sections, then those 4 sections that they meet every day in order to get around block schedule, in order to get around that block schedule, they've taken 10 minutes out of each one of those blocks. So now you've got, instead of, I can't use props, so I can use my fingers, as I say. So you can pull out 10 minutes off one, 10 minutes off another, and 10 minutes off another. Now I've got 40 minutes. I put 40 minutes into another scheduled classroom, and therefore now that student can go to seminary. He can go do an after or a during school last period, if you will. I forgot the term, where they go to work in work experience. Thank you. Apprenticeships. Thank you. He's bringing it in. Okay, so that student's allowed to do those things. You can either do it at the first period of school, or you can do it at the last period of school. But that way that district doesn't get penalized because they broke out a little bit of time out of each one of those periods so that they've got that. So what we're trying to do is take that down to 75% of the time, because of course, when you go back to 4, one period makes 25% of it, and that takes it down to 75%. There's no point in losing 10 minutes of math or English or social studies or civics to make up for that time. So you can have that one that you jammed into the middle so that you're getting around this 80% rule. And that's what this amendment does, is allows the districts to get around the 80% rule when you have a 4-block schedule. I stand for questions.
Question having been called? Oh, Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So regarding the amendment, the Standing Committee amendment, looks like the committee really broadened the catch title by removing part of it to just leave the title School Finance, which is really, really broad. And I'm just curious what the reason is for that.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Madam Chairman or Chairwoman. So in order to do that, we deleted out the regional cost adjustment, and so we could bring in all of what's happening in ADM when we're talking about ADM. And that's all that was just trying to encompass more of what's in the ADM requirements for school districts.
Question having been called? All those in favor of the Standing Committee Amendment number 1, say aye. All those opposed, no? Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has passed. We are back on the bill. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Northrup's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File number 51 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 51 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 158. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 158, sponsored by Appropriations. Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions, an act relating to public employees. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 158. Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes: Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stiff, Walters, Swanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
Representative Stitt.
Madam Chairman, in the absence of the chair, I will move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 158 do pass. And for an explanation of the bill, Senate File 158 essentially relates to our state employees and their retirement contributions. This would increase the employer contribution by 0.5%, 0.5%. It would increase the employee contribution by the same amount, 0.5%. So that will put more money into the system, and you may wonder, well, why are we doing that? And it came at the request of the chief executive to take a look at this. Right now, the Wyoming retirement system for our big plan is 77% funded. That means that right now the balance in the account is equal to 77% of all of the future liabilities projected. Right now it's at 77%. If you do this increase of 0.5% employee and 0.5% employer, then it tends to get to 100% faster. If we do nothing, it gets the plan will reach 100% in the year 2038. So if we do absolutely nothing, it gets fully funded by the year 2038. If we do this, it gets funded in the year 2035. So you pick up 3 years. So how much does this cost? The fiscal note is worth taking a look at. And the cost to the state, it gets split between the general fund and the school foundation program. That's because we have our teachers are included in part of the plan, right? So the total price tag on this is $6 million per year, $6 million per year total, of which about $2 million is the general fund and about $4 million is the school foundation program fund. And I would stand for any questions.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So my bleeding heart for state employees is bleeding and crying at this point, because any person who's been in here with me and served along with me has heard the complaint about every time we give a state employee a raise, we tend to take something back away from them just to make sure that they're taken care of. What's interesting is we also had a very similar discussion just last week, as a matter of fact, about firefighters. And do we really need to put the money into the firefighters' account to get them there that much quicker? And the answer was no. No, we don't need that money. We're going to get there. We can see the end. We don't need to take money from these people or this fund, whatever you want to look at, and put it towards this account to make it get there that much faster. That was the discussion. We heard that all the time. But now we come back and we have this discussion that we want to look at this on state employees. And I've heard the good chairman from appropriations, and having him as my desk mate makes things kind of fun at times, because, well, we just gave him $8,000 in a raise. This is $250 in a year. Is it really that big of a deal? And I'd submit to you that it is, ladies and gentlemen, because until last year, state employees went 10 years without seeing any increase in pay. And in that same time frame, when we did give them a pay increase, it was completely wiped out by contributions to their retirement or contributions to their health insurance. That's also not just state employees. I want to make sure that I make that very clear. This is also school district employees. This is all those teachers that you all represent. This is everybody that you have that's a public employee that goes into this program. 0.5% doesn't seem like it's that much, but to the people that have gone 10 years without receiving a pay raise, they finally get that first pay raise. They finally look at the legislature and they go, thank goodness, we have somebody actually fighting for us. And the very next year we come back and we say, just kidding, guys, we're gonna take 0.5% out of your paycheck now. I don't think that's the message that I want to send. I clearly do not want to send that message. One opportunity that I think we could do to make this bill more palatable is we have $1 billion surplus. Instead of taking 0.5% out of every single state employee's paycheck, find out what that number is, take it out of our savings account and plop it right into the corpus. Make that work for us. That would do the same effect, and it would get us there that much quicker, and we don't have to hurt the state employees to do it. If anything, what I've heard from this floor is we have to make sure that this money gets back to people. We've got 8,500 state employees, and you've got probably twice that, if not closer to 3 times that, for school district employees that this affects. And so if we want our employees to feel like they're valued, we don't want to go after them and take money away from their paychecks when we're just starting to give them back and get them back to the level that they should have been at, as we've been hurting for the past 6-7 years. So I really want to urge caution against this bill. I know it made it over this way, and I know we get to try to make it better. And if it passes committee of the whole, I can assure you there will be plenty of fun amendments to come forward on ways that we can fix this to make it more palatable. Because I do want to make sure that our state employees and our obligations are fulfilled. We have one of the best opportunities in the world. If you become into this pension, you have a phenomenal opportunity that you don't get anywhere else in this country. So let's make sure we continue to take care of the people that are paying into this and not punish them by taking something else out of their paycheck after we've just brought them back up to market rate. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the bringer, there's a subset of public employees out there who are being treated differently than other public employees, and I was wondering if we could maybe discuss those folks. And they're your municipal law enforcement officers and firefighters in Class A cities who don't pay into Social Security. And so as a consequence, those employees don't get much of an adjustment whenever Social Security benefits increase. And their employers seem to gain an advantage in that they don't pay a 6.2% contribution into Social Security on behalf of those employees. And so the municipalities actually benefit while all their other employees will pay into Social Security and get a pension contribution and the employer will pay a contribution into the Wyoming retirement system and a contribution into Social Security on their behalf. For those firefighters and law enforcement personnel in those Class A cities, no contribution to Social Security is being made. I was wondering if that discussion was had at all, if this maybe is specific only to state employees and doesn't trickle down to our municipal employees, but we often overlook that small group of people who work in those Class A cities who are treated differently than the other public employees. So just wonder if that came up in discussion.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So in the title of the bill, it says you're removing archaic language. And on page 2, it looks like the amendment still has some archaic language in there as far as page 2, line 12, it still says of his salary. So I don't know if that was considered when you were drafting the bill, but it looks like we might need to do a second reading amendment.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Question for the member of Appropriations. I don't remember hearing about this as a topic given to the Appropriations Committee by Management Council. So, and I can't remember. So if that was the case, did you have hearings on this during the interim? I mean, where people know? I mean, I didn't. I guess if you did, that's great. But then the next question is really, and for you folks who are pretty new, it's been over 10 years ago where we passed a law that we will not give any COLAs, cost of living adjustments, until the fund reaches 100%. Okay, and it used to be where the retirement board could give COLAs. Now it has to be an approval of the state legislature, give a COLA. So, and let me just say, our retirement funds are in very good shape. We had one that was a little problem with Fire A. We fixed that last year. This current fund, the big fund, is at like 78%, which is very healthy. And then the trajectory of it is very good. And so the state statute that we passed at least a decade ago, I was on appropriations then. We did a lot of work on this, held a lot of interim committee meetings, had a lot of input from around the state, but the whole idea then was to get to 100. And 100 is like the super gold standard. There's only like 2 or 3 states whose plan is 100 or more. So that's 100 is super. 80 is really good. 90 is great. And we're at like 78 now. But so I'm looking at these actuary studies with this another 0.5% that's going to be in our state budget. It's going to be ongoing. And without it. And it looks like we reach 100% at about the exact same time, 2037, maybe about 8 months difference. I mean, I guess if you could tell me and show me the stuff, say, yeah, if we do this, we're going to get there 10 years sooner. Yeah, maybe I could give an aye vote on committee of the whole. But I don't see that in the actuary study. So, Madam Chair, again, I'd like to know when these committee meetings were, if this was a topic, and why we're doing it if it really doesn't matter in 2037. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, and first I may call a point of order on myself. Now that Chairman Nicholas is back on the floor, if we could have him formally move that Senate file, that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so. It's a recommendation that it passed. Senate file 158.
Mr. Chairman, I would move Senate File
158
and ask for your favorable consideration and vote aye.
If I may, Madam Chairman.
Representative Stith.
To address the question from the speaker before last, our chief executive issued a number of letters relating to our supplemental budget, and one of the letters was letter number 16, and this was an issue that was identified in letter number 16 from our good chief executive, and to my knowledge, that's how this issue came up. And by the report from our system that governs our Wyoming retirement, they predict that the fund, which is at 77% right now, if we do nothing, will get to 100% in the year 2038. And if we adopt Senate File 158, it would get there 3 years earlier, 2035. So for all those employees who may want to ask for a cost of living adjustment, once it gets to 100%, they can get it 3 years earlier.
Representative Berger.
So 2035. So I guess my question, we can go back, and my question is, so
Representative Berger.
will it guarantee?
Can you address the chair?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Representative Berger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess my question to the good bringer of this bill is then 2035, it gets us to 100%, but it still, if we do this, but it still doesn't guarantee a COLA. We still have to elect this, correct? And then it still doesn't answer my question. I sure would like, if there was a larger amount to get us to 100% sooner, so we could look at giving a COLA for those retired individuals in our state on this Wyoming state pension. I would sure like to find a way we could go about that. Oh.
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, and to address the prior question about who's included and who's not. So this is about the public employee pension plan. It does involve county and municipal employees, involves teachers, state employees, and at the university and the community colleges as well. It does not, however, include firefighters. That they're covered under what is now Fire Pension Plan B. And I believe, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think other law enforcement are involved in this plan either. So those are treated separately.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, ladies and gentlemen, we had testimony from the director of the retirement system. And what he told us is that right now, our current system is basically underfunding this account to the tune of about 2%. And at some point, we're going to have a fix on it. So right now, there's basically an unfunded liability of $2.5 billion on this account. What this does, it moves us in the right direction to smooth out that issue. He also told us that the numbers that the good representative from Casper was talking to you about on this handout, this was created in December. In December, they thought that their overall losses from last year were about 5.5%. We now know that it's 6.9%, which puts all these years back about 3 or 4 years. And so this, instead of being 2038, it goes to 2042. The other problem is that is predicated on a constant annual return of at least 6.8%. So if we have one more downturn, like we just had last year, 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, then that 2042 or 2038 is going to go out another 5 or 6 years. So that's the way this works. And so that's why when he testified to us just last week, is this a good idea and should we do it? He said, absolutely. He says we need it to protect the fund. So on in favor.
Representative Berger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Another question then for the good representative, I believe from Casper. Anyways, the good representative, or the chairman from the appropriations. We've been doing this. We've been, public employees. You have been increasing our enrollment into Wyoming retirement. The last, for me, I can remember the last 10 years. Now I'm all for it. I like to save, so I'm all in this. When does it stop this increasement? Because now it's like almost 18% of my check is going into Wyoming retirement. Is this the last one? Can I say this is the last one?
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, there are good points being raised here about, well, how hard does this hit the employees? Right now, for most of the state employees in the pension system, it is trued up 17.5% or so is going into retirement. But of that amount right now, the state employees pay just a little over 5%, 5 point something. I don't know the exact decimal on that. So it would go from, so the employee contribution would go this would bump it up an entire point from about 17.5 to 18.5% going in. And the employee contribution would go from about 5 point something to about 6%, essentially. And for context, of course, state employees got an 8% raise last year. We're giving them another 8% raise this year. So their income's gone up 16%, and this would cost them an extra one half point on that. It is different. It's not quite uniform across the entire pension plan. The contributions by certain municipalities and by the school districts are different and vary depending on which municipality or district it is. Some school districts, like the one in my community, picks up the entire cost of the retirement for the teachers, so they don't pay anything for their retirement. It is deferred compensation for them that they richly deserve. So on and for, please vote aye.
Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So with the retirement plan, a couple things to remember. The plan, and we all call it the big plan. It's the state employee plan. Most of the people are in that plan. It varies, it goes up and down on funding. The idea would be at least 80% funding is great. 100% funding is just fantastic, and very few places have that. Over the years, though, we've heard this of, well, if we add to it now, then it'll be 100% funded in a certain length of time. The only problem is that length of time always keeps moving further and further away. It's better funded today than it was 10 years ago. Then it was about 72%, now it's about 77%. I remember talk on this floor that if we add to it and we have a really good year on investments, it would be 100% funded in a very short period of time. That actually happened. The very next year after that, though, we had a big decrease in the amount of earnings, and it went back down. So this is a moving target that is constantly moving. Is there enough money in there to pay the retirees out there right now? Yes. If every single person retired today, this minute, yeah, you can only pay 77% of the retirement, but that won't happen. I doubt all the state employees would retire today, and the school teachers and everyone else. So we had this discussion a little bit the other day. It's a moving target that we have to address. And it's a personal thing. Do you think that state employees should take some of their raise that they'll get and add it into their retirement and maybe get it funded 3 years earlier at 100%, or let it go and it'll continue to go out there, which it has done for the past, actually it's done it for the past 12 years that I can remember. We are yet to be 100% funded. I think it got to 82% at one point. But now we had a bad year last year. It's back down. And these investments, you can't make an investment like you would do with your own money of, hey, I'm going to go buy a 6-month CD with some extra money. They're investing hundreds of millions of dollars, and some of these contracts are for 3 to 5 years. So you have that in there that you can't just pull the money out. You have major penalties. And that's part of the reason why this money fluctuates so much in there. So I would say, vote your conscience on this, whether you think that we need to do this and fund it 3 years earlier, or if we can just let it go, leave the people keep 0.5% in their pocket and go out 3 more years. Thank you.
Representative Berger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other thing, this raising the cost, and yeah, vote your conscience on this, because this is a tough one. And for me, I'm about savings, but you go back and you start thinking, okay, we just gave raises, we just gave you raise, we're going to pull more money out for retirement, and also coming up, we're going to start pulling more money out for insurance costs as well. So those things are going up as well. So here we go. We're going to start pulling out of their checks again, and we might not see as much in there. So anyways, vote your conscience. Thanks.
Any other discussion on the bill? Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just did a quick look at, Madam Chair, of Governor's Letter 16, and I don't see any call for action. It looks like it's more of an information sheet, multiple pages long. But again, I think, you know, when we go to do something, I remember I was thinking back, it was the summer of 2013, put a summer of my life into this, and we had a lot of hearings, a lot of input on how to do that. It wasn't a letter that hardly anybody ever reads, but it was full of information. I think if we're going to continue down this road, we're going to need more people at the table. And if we need to do it, we need to do it. But I think we got to have more discussion. So I'm going to vote no on this on committee of the whole, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, I want the public and everyone to know that we cherish each and every one of the governor's letters. So I have to call for the question.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just ask everyone to remember there's about 35,000 people involved here. Let's think about them.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's just run the numbers really quickly. We just gave roughly an 8% raise last year and an 8% raise this year. The average salary is around $55,000 take home. So that just went to $68,000. I mean, excuse me, that would be $63,000. From 55 to 63, this bill costs $250 a year. So you're out of that $8,000 pay raise, it takes an extra $250 out of everyone's paycheck. And I just don't think that that's unreasonable. So on in favor.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I just did the big G machine really quick and just typed in what was $63,000 worth in 2012, because that would be the last time that we gave a raise without offsetting it. That would be about $81,000 today. So we're still behind by about $20,000. I think we can let our public employees keep $250 on and against.
Any other discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Nicholas' motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate file number 158 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no? Senate file 158 has, having failed a voice vote and standing, a division vote is required. All those in favor, please stand. If you're in favor. It's a slow roll. All those opposed, please stand. More than 7. Pursuant to House Rule 6-6B, the bill having failed a voice vote, having failed standing division vote, a roll call is required. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Ellamand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Plouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 3 aye, 55 no, 4 excused.
Pursuant to House Rule 6-6B, Senate File 158, having failed a roll call vote, is indefinitely postponed. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 74. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 74 is sponsored by Agriculture. Slow-moving vehicles, amendments, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 74 engrossed, slow-moving vehicles, amendments, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Allred, Banks, Conrad, Davis, Slagle. Noes, Representatives Eklund, Winter. Excused, Representative Crago. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
Chairman Eklund, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 74 do pass. This bill has some amendments. They're not standing committee amendments, and I'll turn the explanation over to my friend from the northeast part of the state.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the legislature, this is a bill just trying to update our statutes. We're all familiar with slow-moving vehicles and the rectangular sign on the back of the vehicles. And this bill has come over to us from the Senate with some changes to it and what it was originally put in. But basically what it does is the one that's before you right now just changes the limit from 25 up to 45 miles an hour for slow-moving vehicles. And there are a couple of amendments to this bill, and I will let the people bringing those amendments discuss them at the time they're appropriate.
Any discussion on the bill before we move to amendments? Chairman Eklund?
Madam Chairman, the changes coming out of the interim, the bill remained pretty much intact as it came through the committee work on the Senate side, or the other side. Then it took some drastic changes as it hit the floor. And one of the two amendments that are coming are meant to bring the bill back to what it was when it was introduced out of the interim or worked in the interim. And I'll let the bringers of those amendments explain them now, and I'll work with them and try to help explain what's happened.
We're on Chairman Eklund, can you move the amendment? Oh, sorry, Representative Heiner, can you move the amendment?
Madam Chairwoman, thank you very much. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 74 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, I want to clarify some things that are going on here. 50 years ago, we came out with this triangle, orange triangle, and it was designed for implements and agricultural equipment and anything that is designed to travel at 25 miles an hour or less. I remember when it came out, I was a teenager, and we had to buy all these triangles and put on all of our equipment. What it was is to provide for improved safety for when these implements get on the highway and you're coming up at 55 miles an hour and you see something with this orange triangle, you realize it's not going to go any faster than 25 miles an hour. So as a bit of caution, you slowed down and made some changes to keep yourself and others safe. Well, 50 years has passed. I grew up and things have changed. Now, some of these implements, some of these tractors coming out now are designed to go up to 45 miles an hour. They're engineered that way. Somebody just didn't change a few gears. They re-engineered the brakes, the chassis, the suspension, the lights, everything was changed. So during the interim, we spent 3 or 4 hours hearing testimony about all this. How our agricultural group wants us to change our statute to encompass these changes that are coming about with these newer implements and newer tractors and farm machinery. And so that's where the nexus of this bill came from. But when it went over into the Senate, they stripped all of that away. So my amendment, you'll see that the co-sponsors were on that original committee. We are trying to put it back the way it was. We spent a lot of time and effort to get this in such a way that it will be not only improve safety, but lower risk for our agricultural industry. So let me explain the SIS, which is a speed identification symbol. Everyone will still have their orange triangle, which means they can't go over 25 miles an hour, but those pieces of machinery that are engineered and designed to go faster will also have this speed identification symbol on the side, right by the side of that triangle. And in that white circle, it'll say what speed that equipment is designed to go. So if it's designed to go 40 miles an hour, the white circle will have a 40 miles an hour inside there. So when you're coming up on this piece of equipment going down the road and you're doing 55 and you see one of these and it's doing 40 and it's got that little circle, you'll understand why. So it's to convey a little bit of safety to these farmers and ranchers as they're traveling down the highway. Now, I want to tell you that it doesn't mean that the rancher has to go out and buy all these speed identification symbols. That comes from the manufacturer. If you go out and buy a new tractor today, it will have the triangle and it'll have the speed symbol on it by the side of it. Farmers and ranchers don't have to do anything. If you buy an implement today that's designed to go 45 miles an hour, it will have that 45 mile an hour speed identification symbol on it. What we're trying to do is make it so everyone knows how fast these implements can be taken down the road. And I got to tell you an experience I had when I was a teenager. I took a farm implement and put it behind the pickup and took it down the highway faster than it was designed to go, and it was not a good outcome. Those things are not designed to go that fast. And a teenager likes adrenaline. That created a memory that is not a good memory. So this is to protect everyone that's in the farming and ranching business. So when they tie on to one of these implements, they know what speed it can go, because they may have a tractor that can go 45 miles an hour, but the thing they're going to pull may only be designed for 25 miles an hour. So a 16-year-old kid that, like maybe myself, may not get in a predicament where he's taking that too fast and having an accident on the road. So it improves safety, not only for the ranching and farming community, but for everyone that's on the highway. And it lowers risk by putting that in statute. So I urge you to, let's put this back the way it was when it came out of committee over the summertime. And this was brought back to us after it was changed in the Senate. In the other chamber. These agricultural groups came to us and said, would you please put this back the way it was or kill the bill? That's the two options they want out of this. Is they don't want confusion for some 16-year-old kid taking an implement down the road and having it turn upside down. So urge your aye vote on this amendment. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Chairman Eklund.
Madam Chairman, so I would add a little bit to it. The bill was simply brought forward these standards that we're changing. We're just trying to adopt what is the industry standard. And the industry standard is established by the American Society of Biological and Ag Engineers. They're the ones that designed the machinery, and they'll tell you how fast they should go. Presently, there isn't anything that's rated to be going 45. That was put in by our colleagues on the other side just to try to cover everything. There are a few machines that'll go 40. Most of the implements you're pulling, the information on the speed with which you're pulling it is designed for the operator. So we've got a set of heavy equipment operators, I guess, for a better description, that kind of know their machines, and they'll determine what the capabilities of the machines are through study in other ways and through this placard that some of these machines have. And they're the only ones that need to know what that is, what the safe operating and the safe use of those machines. Anyway, what we've done by passing a law that says your minimum needs to be 45 is allowed other people that are unfamiliar with the machinery, what the capabilities of the machinery are, to use them in a fashion that they're just simply not safe to use. Going 45 with most implements will probably, depending on the bearings, probably cause some problems with bearings, tires, and other things. But what this is meaning to do is just establish and adopt the standards as they're sent to Wyoming. It's fairly standard throughout the United States. Not all states are doing it. We don't have to. Right now, I wish we hadn't, but it'd be better to not have. As far as killing the bill, it'd be better to not have anything and leave it at 2025, which is a part that matters. That's a part that people see is slow down. There's a slow-moving vehicle in front of you. Be better to just kill this thing rather than indicate to folks that they can run these machines going 45 when most of them just simply can't.
Representative Davis.
Madam Chairman, or Chairwoman, I just wanted to be clear with the bringer of the amendment. In my own mind, so you're saying the equipment that is pre-1920 or 1923, that's my equipment, but pre-2023 would have this placards that you're referring to. Now, the pre-2023, would that equipment just be required with the triangle, or would it have to have the speed indicators and the lights, et cetera, on it also? Cost to the, i.e. equipment owner.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So what the other body did and what we sustained in our committee was as I won't speak for all agriculture people, but for me, we like things simple. What they did in the other body and what we sustained in committee was it's a universal thing that red triangle, it means slow moving vehicle. So all this bill was intended to do was just increase that. So to still be in compliance with the slow moving vehicle, we moved it from 25 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour. With new technology and stuff, they can go a little bit faster. So now, if they go 30 miles an hour, they'd still be in compliance with the slow moving vehicle emblem that's on that tractor. And all of this stuff that wanted to add to it, we just didn't see a need for that. To just make things simple for people on the highway looking and seeing slow-moving tractors, as well as the farmers themselves, was you put that triangle on there, you're covered that it's a slow-moving vehicle. People behind you realize that's a slow-moving vehicle. And if you're going 25 or if you're going 30, you're still covered in that under the slow-moving vehicle emblem. So this was an effort just to make things simple all across the board and all around. So I urge a no vote on this amendment and aye on the bill.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. So I have a question relative to the speed. I heard somebody say it was a speed minimum, but the way I read it, it says that the operation at speeds not in excess of. And the old language has been deleted and it says 45. And that's pretty consistent. And then the folks down at the other end, everyone but one voted for it. Could you help us understand that? Thank you.
Representative Alleman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Originally in committee, I did vote for this bill as it is now. I voted against the amendment, but with further thought, there's going to be a lot of liability put on an old tractor that shouldn't even be doing 25 and he's trying to do 45. And he gets in a wreck. If he has the speed identification circle, then he gets in a wreck with the vehicle. He's got a way out. But without the speed identification circle, and he's going over the 25 in a new tractor, or over the 25 or whatever the speed identification says, he's in trouble legally and could get sued in a wreck. I think this vote yes on the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Wiley.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. I just had one question. I was kind of going through this thing and I flipped over to the fiscal note and it says indeterminable. Sounds like you guys have worked this for a long time. How much money is this going to cost to implement? Do we have any idea? Thanks.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So let me get you some perspective on the ag industry. When I was a kid growing up, John Deere B, John Deere 50, that was what was available, common to do light stuff with. Top speed, 8 miles an hour. 8. What agony to go down the road at 8 miles an hour. Oh my gosh. So then the newer tractors came out. Some of them had sound guard cabs on them. You could actually sit in an air-conditioned environment and listen to the radio, and they did a whopping 24 miles an hour. Break your neck, you're going so fast. And so now the industry's caught up, and Europe was commonly doing quite a bit more because of the traffic conditions. If you've ever seen European roads, they're very narrow. They're very, you can get a lot of congestion at 24 miles an hour or even at 8 miles an hour. And so they sped them up a little bit. Well, that's just bleeding over into the United States now. And these tractors are doing up to 40 miles an hour. Now, I don't know about 45, but there's some out there that will do 35-ish in that area. And you're just seeing technology. By doing this, what happens if my tractor, my 24 mile an hour tractor going down a hill is doing 28? Am I going to get picked up for speeding? That's what I want to know. Because if pick me up for speeding in a tractor that's going down a hill, good deal. And now you just made me have one more ticket. on and against this amendment, leave it the bill the way it is.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hate to go against some good ideas that come from this state, but with this bill, or the amendment, I forget what it is. Anyway, it's the safety matter is the prime concern here, I think, and all the surrounding states are still using the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I think we need to comply with that as well. We have a lot of tourists come to this state, and I think it caused a lot of concern and bad things could happen. So I just think we ought to put it back the way it was, and so I'm against the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On against this amendment, I also serve on the Ag Committee, voted for the bill as it came to us from the House down the hall. My thought is I understand this talk about liability and people not doing things, but just because we label something one way doesn't mean the operator's gonna work that way. It's individual responsibility, and I think we need to vote against this bill or this amendment. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Representative, which one was first? Heiner? Oh,
Okay.
Chairman Slagle. Eklund, Chairman Eklund.
Okay. Madam Chairman, this really isn't a safety bill. It's just simply adopting standards and what the industry has come to. We're not running a 8-mile-an-hour tractor anymore. The machine operators know what speed they should be going with their machines, I'm guessing. They might not when they're coming home from a farm sale, but they will figure it out shortly afterwards. The public already knows to slow down, and that would be safe driving. If we adopt the standards as they are, without increasing the speed to kind of an unlimited, keep it under 45, I believe that we send a message to the public that you can do whatever you want, just keep the speed down to under 45. That's a bad message to send. I think the state of Wyoming really needs the operators to operate the equipment and what they're designed to do, and that's what this bill is trying to do, just adopt those standards.
Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Hopefully I can bring this home a little bit. And I'll start with the good chairman. It is kind of a little bit of a safety thing for a 16-year-old young man driving an implement behind a pickup, because he'll be able to see that this is not supposed to go 40 miles an hour. And it's pretty obvious what the speed limit is, because that's what it's engineered for. So it'll not only help the public, but it'll help teenagers that don't know what they're doing out there. So a couple of other questions. Fiscal note. I do not support or sustain whatever that fiscal note is on there. I don't know why it's indeterminate, because this came out in the summertime. There should be no fiscal impact to the state of Wyoming. This is just putting in statute a rule or something the industry is migrating towards. Can you buy one of those stickers? No, you cannot. It's part of the implement. You have to, it has an ID number. If you go to the manufacturer and say, I need one of those stickers, they just won't give you one unless that piece of machinery has been designed for that speed, over 25 miles an hour. If it has been designed, it'll come that way with a sticker already on it. What we're doing is putting this in statute so we all understand that some machinery is designed to go a little bit faster. Now, what happens if you take your tractor out of gear and you coast downhill and you're doing 28 instead of 25? Nothing's changed. If you're already doing this and you didn't get a ticket, well, maybe there's some attorneys in here can help you with that. But there's nothing changed if your tractor is going faster than 25 miles an hour and you have the slow-moving symbol on there, maybe you exceeded the speed limit. Personally, I don't know of any tractors I've ever driven that went faster than 25 miles an hour on purpose. Again, it's not, no changes are required for older equipment. The only way to get this SIS or speed indication sticker is to buy a new implement or a new tractor that already has it on there. So existing farmers and ranchers don't need to do anything. It's just allowing the statute. We're trying to update our statute to current industry standards. And with that, Madam Chairwoman, I call for the question.
Representative Allemand.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm glad I got an open mind. I've changed my mind again already. It's going to be complicated to get these little stickers unless they come on the tractor when you buy it. And most of the tractors and the implements and stuff that are out there now don't have them, and they're going to be maybe difficult to get. And when you're coming up behind one of these stickers are about this big around, and you're not going to see them. You're not even going to be able to read them as you go past because they're just too small. Thank you.
Question being called. No? Chairman Northrup, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I certainly hate to plow some more ground, but there certainly isn't anybody that I know of that would ever kick a tractor into neutral and coast down a hill. I'm just saying that they speed up when they go down a hill, just like your car does. And I will leave it at that. Vote no on the amendment.
Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, say aye. All those opposed, no. Committee of the Whole number 1, sorry, has failed. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, discussion. Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment 2 to House Bill 74 basically is just some wording that was requested by the...
Representative Slagle, could I have you move the amendment?
Right, I will move. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 to House Bill 74, or Senate File 74, excuse me.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, this amendment just comes from the Trucking Association and Contractors people. They wanted us to strike special mobile equipment and units towed by special mobile equipment. So that's what this amendment does. I would ask for a favorable vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Question being called. Oh. Chairman Eklund.
So when the amendment, Madam Chairman, when the amendment was made on the other side to increase it by 45, one of the parts that got a little cobbled up was bringing the construction industry back into the bill, and they had been left out of it. It only pertained to farm implements. So this brings it closer to what it was, but still will not really fix the bill. It'll have people traveling too fast. So I'd vote aye on the amendment and no on the bill still.
Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, say aye. All those opposed? No? Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 has passed. We are back on the bill. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Eklund's, or Chairman Eklund's motion that the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File Number 74 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File Number 74 has failed. And voice vote. We will now go to a voice vote. Standing vote. All those in favor, please stand. Don't rush. All those in favor, please stand. All those opposed, please stand. More than 13. Pursuant to House Rule 6-6B, the bill having failed a division vote, a roll vote is required. Please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? I'm sorry, repeat. O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Swanitzer Dan? Swanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Allred? Aye to no. Storer? O'Hearn? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 24 aye, 36 no, 2 excused.
Pursuant to House Rule 6-6B, Senate File 74 having failed, a roll call vote is indefinitely postponed. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries.
The reading clerk will read the committee of the whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 8, do pass. Senate File 9, do pass amended. Senate File 11, do pass. Senate File 31, do pass. Senate File 51, do pass amended. Senate File 158, failed to pass committee of the whole and was indefinitely postponed. Senate File 74, failed to pass committee of the whole and was indefinitely postponed. Representative Angelos, Chairman.
I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
Just, Chairman Angelos, now say it.
I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Congratulations, Representative Angelos. Messages. Messages from the Senate.
Message 295, Mr. Speaker, Senate File 48, Education Suspension and Expulsion Model Policies. The Senate failed to concur on House amendments to the bill listed above by the vote indicated. Ayes 0, 31 noes. Message 296, Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with the Light Committee Number 1 from the House on amendments to Senate File 48. The Senate conferees are Senator Scott, Chairman, Senator Ellis, Senator Rothfuss. Message 298, Mr. Speaker, House Bill 9, Juvenile Courts, Concurrent Jurisdiction Clarification. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 31. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 299. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 13, Office of Guardian Ad Litem Program References. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 31. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 300. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 18, Missing Persons Alert Systems. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 31. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 301. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 61, Source Material Associated with Mining Agreement. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 31. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 302. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 70, Definition of Home-Based Educational Program. Ayes 27, noes 4. Message 303. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 20, Land Exchanges. Notice, the House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, noes 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 304. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 26, School Facilities Appropriations. Ayes 22, noes 9. Message 305. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 14, Civil Case Filing Fees Amendments. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 21, noes 10. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 306. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 13, Bar and Grill Liquor License Phase Out. Ayes 24, noes 4, conflict 3. Message 307. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 16, State Land Leasing Improvements. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 29, conflict 2. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 308. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 41. The Senate conferees are Senator Hicks, Chairman, Senator French, Senator Jones. Message 309. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 47, Election Equipment, Federal Certification. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 24, noes 7. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 310. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 104, Hunting of Predatory Animals Amendments. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 27, noes 4. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Okay, we are at that order of business of request to concur with Senate amendments to House bills. So remember, you go to your daily calendar and clear down at the bottom will be the concurrences. And then for those chairmen that are doing this, if you're not going to concur, eventually I might need to know what you want that conference committee to be. Or if you are, likewise, if you are the sponsor of the bill, the lead sponsor, then you will need to talk to me about who you may want to have on your committee with you. And so with that, the first message for our consideration is message number 282 on House Bill 35, Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for concurrence and ask for your favorable consideration on House Bill or on message number 282. And I will explain.
So did you move message number 282?
Okay, I didn't get that in my preamble. I'm sorry. I move for concurrence on House or on.
Mr. Chairman, I think you just moved message 282.
I did.
Okay.
I didn't get it in the right order.
Okay.
Okay. So this, I'll just refresh everybody's memory. This is that daycare bill that we had in education, and the bill took a few hits over on the other side, but the bringer of the bill is agreeable to them. So therefore, I'm asking you to vote yes on the concurrence.
Debate. Okay, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 35. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Banks?
Excused.
Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd?
There he is.
Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Sherwood? Singh?
Excused.
Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit, excuse me. Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Swanitzer Dan? Swanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Penn, no to aye. Alamand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 53 aye, 7 no, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 35. The next message for our consideration is message number 309 on House Bill 47, Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 309 to House Bill 47, and I'm going to ask you to not concur. Just as a refresher, House Bill 47 took rules of the Office of the Secretary of State and put them in, as they dealt with federal certification, and codified them into law. We had a standing committee amendment that went through in the rules and found, okay, so here's a list of rules that are not being codified, and then we just decided to codify them. In other words, the standing committee amendment that you had adopted said everything that's in the rules as it pertains to federal certification is now going into the statute. So that's where the bill left. The amendment is a little peculiar because it basically adopted half of our standing committee amendment and then went back and backtracked and erased half of our standing committee amendment. So I just haven't really had the opportunity to speak with the good chairman on the other side, who was the author of that amendment, to understand exactly why half of our standing committee amendment would be acceptable and the other half would not. So I'm asking you not to concur. Give me the opportunity to go down the other side of the hall and figure out why, and then we'll go from there. Because from our standpoint, it makes sense to just put into statute all the rules. Either put them all in or don't put them in, but since the bill puts them in, that's what we're doing. Vote no.
Any debate? We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 47. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Alamand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storr, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers.
No.
Brown, will you repeat? Are there any changes? Larson Lloyd, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 6 aye, 54 no, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to not concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 47. The Conference Committee on House Bill 47 will be Olson, Chadwick, Washut, Olson chair. The next message for our consideration is message number 287 on House Bill 82, Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move message number 287 on House Bill 82 and would ask you to vote aye. House Bill 82, I believe the sponsor of the bill wanted to address the body, but I do think this, while he's indisposed, I will talk a little bit about what the bill does. This is what happens again if you are only accused of a misdemeanor and whether or not you need to go to the state hospital and have an inpatient or an outpatient examination. And I have found the good sponsor of the bill who will explain why this is a great amendment.
So thank you,
Chairman, Vice Chairman Larson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And folks, I'd ask for an aye vote on your concurrence. And what we did on this bill, as you recall, we said that if there was a misdemeanor and they were looking for, and they needed an evaluation, it would be an outpatient evaluation at the state hospital. And if it was determined that an inpatient evaluation was needed, it could be done at the state hospital. The question was asked in committee on the Senate side, well, why does it have to be the state hospital if there's someplace else qualified to do it? And that makes sense. So the evaluation could be an outpatient from another entity, could be a veterans type of an association or something that has a similar forensic evaluator and didn't have to be at the state hospital. And that just made more sense, give more flexibility, still under the control of the department that oversees health that would be looking at this to make sure that that funding is taken care of. So good catch, and I would ask for an aye vote.
We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 82. A majority of elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clouston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Stivar? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 82. Reports from standing committees.
Senate File 37, sponsored by Senator Baldwin. Mr. Speaker, Podiatry Medical Services, Medicaid, an act relating to Medical Assistance and Service Act. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 37 engrossed. Podiatry Medical Services, Medicaid, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Swanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Ward. Representative Swanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 40, sponsored by Senator Case. Federal Political Action Committees reports, an act relating to campaign practices. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 40. Federal Political Action Committee reports, respectful reports, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Harshman, Newsom, Olson, Wiley, Yin. Noes, Representatives Haraldson, Knapp, Ottman. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 43, sponsored by Senator Case, EMS Districts, an act relating to improvement and service districts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 43 engrossed, EMS Districts, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Harshman, Newsom, Wiley, Yin. Noes, Representatives Haraldson, Knapp, Olson, Ottman. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 47, sponsored by Education. Education, repeal of immunity for corporal discipline, an act relating to K through 12 education. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 47. Education, repeal of immunity for corporal discipline. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Clouston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermuller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman. Senate File 55, sponsored by Senator Nethercott. Chancery Court Vacancies Extension Amendment, an act relating to courts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 55. Chancery Court Vacancies Extension Amendment. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Haraldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Vice Chair. Senate File 69, sponsored by Senator Nethercott. Electronic Records Retention, an act relating to courts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 69. Electronic Records Retention. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Haraldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Vice Chair. Senate File 79, sponsored by Senator Baldwin. Plan of Safe Care Newborns, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 79 engrossed. Plan of Safe Care Newborns, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Swanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Ward. Representative Swanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 91, sponsored by Senator Nethercott. Creation of tenancy by the entirety, an act relating to property. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 91, creation of tenancy by entirety, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Haroldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Vice Chair. Senate File 139, sponsored by Senator Kolb. Unlawful use of charge card or debit card, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 139. Unlawful use of a charge card or debit card. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 173, sponsored by Senator Driscoll. Financial institutions, similar names, an act relating to banks, banking, and finance. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 173 engrossed. Financial institutions, similar names. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to do a new thing for me and for you guys, which is the reading and signing of enrolled acts. So I had to figure out where I needed to sign. So we're at that order of business of signing enrolled acts. House Bill 112, Enrolled Act number 1. I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 1. You need to read it first. Yes, you do. All right. Thank you. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act 1, being original House Bill 112. An act relating to crimes and offenses, establishing separate felony penalties for fifth or subsequent theft offenses, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 1, being original House Bill number 112. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Oakley, on the number 1. The next enrolled act will be Enrolled Act number 2 to House Bill 111. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
Enrolled Act 2, being original House Bill 111. An act relating to crimes and offenses, adding fentanyl to the list of controlled substances that qualify as a child endangerment offense, clarifying the applicability of provisions and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Are they all here? I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 2, being original House Bill 111. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Oakley. The next enrolled act is Enrolled Act number 3 of House Bill 97.
House Enrolled Act 3 being original House Bill 97. An act relating to civil procedure, amending the jurisdiction for lawsuits related to government contracts filed under the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act to include the Chancery Court as specified, specifying applicability and providing for effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 1 being original House Bill number 97. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Stiff. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Enrolled Act number 4, House Bill 50. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
Enrolled Act number 4 being original House Bill 50. An act relating to the prioritization of municipal solid waste facilities, cease and transfer projects, authorizing expenditure of previously appropriated funds, establishing a prioritized list of projects, establishing a maximum amount to be expended on projects, granting the Department of Environmental Quality limited discretionary authority to modify the prioritized list, specifying expenditures for a carcass management project, providing definitions, requiring reports, repealing a prior list of priority cease and transfer projects, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Just a second. I want to make sure this is right. It's Enrolled Act number 4.
House Bill 50.
Yep. I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 4, being original House Bill number 50. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Enrolled Act number 5. On House Bill 45, the reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
Enrolled Act 5 being original House Bill 45. An act relating to the administration of the government, allowing rehiring of persons who have retired under the Wyoming State Highway Patrol, Game and Fish Warden, and Criminal Investigator Retirement Act, repealing the mandatory retirement age under the Wyoming State Highway Patrol, Game and Fish Warden, and Criminal Investigator Retirement Act, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 5, being original House Bill number 45. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Enrolled Act number 6, being House Bill 39. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 6 being original House Bill 39. An act relating to motor vehicles, authorizing the Department of Transportation to accept specified documentation to verify honorable discharge of a veteran for the veteran designation on the Wyoming driver's license, amending the veteran designation on a Wyoming driver's license, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 6, being original House Bill 39. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Enrolled Act number 7 to House Bill 29. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 7 being original House Bill 29. An act relating to community college funding, modifying the definition of distance education for community colleges, eliminating the full-time weighted equivalency for distance education class credit hours for calculations in the community college funding allocation model, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 7, being original House Bill 29. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act, the next Enrolled Act that we shall do is House Enrolled Act number 8 to House Bill 28.
House
The reading
Enrolled,
clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act number 8, being original House Bill 28, an act relating to the duties of the Wyoming Community College Commission, increasing the maximum estimated cost of community college capital construction projects which require approval of the Community College Commission, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 8, being original House Bill 28. I have so signed. The next Enrolled Act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act 9, being House Bill 12. Reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act number 9, being original House Bill 12, an act relating to child support, amending the presumptive child support amounts and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 9, being original House Bill 12. I have so signed. The next Enrolled Act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 10, being House Bill 10. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act 10, being original House Bill 10, an act relating to county officers, increasing the amount of the bond that county officers are required to give as specified, eliminating a requirement for multiple sureties for county officers, specifying applicability and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 10, being original House Bill 10. I have so signed. The next Enrolled Act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act 11, being House Bill 24. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act number 11, being original House Bill 24, an act relating to the administration of government, amending performance compensation payment limits for senior analysis and analysis employed by the state treasurer and the Wyoming retirement system, authorizing relocation expenses for investment staff hired by the state treasurer and the Wyoming retirement system, establishing maximum compensation amounts for investment staff employed by the state treasurer and the Wyoming retirement system, providing appropriations and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 11 to House Bill number 24. I have so signed. The next Enrolled Act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 12, being House Bill 69. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act 12, being original House Bill 69, an act relating to the administration of government, continuing the coal-fired facility closures litigation funding account, amending permissible purposes and use for the coal-fired facility closure litigation funding account, for commencing and prosecuting lawsuits against states relating to the coal exportation and coal-fired electric generation facilities, making conforming amendments, requiring reports, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 12, being original House Bill number 69. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Larson Lloyd. The next Enrolled Act for our consideration is Enrolled Act number 13 to House Bill 70. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
House Enrolled Act 13, being original House Bill 70, an act relating to education, modifying the definition of home-based educational program, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 13, being original House Bill 70. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Nyman. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 14, being House Bill 26. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 14 being original House Bill 26. An act relating to the appropriations for K through 12 school facilities, modifying the required budget recommendation from the Select Committee on School Facilities, clarifying the legislature's ability to appropriate one sum for the design and construction for each project, clarifying reporting requirements, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 14, being original House Bill 26. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act 1, being original Senate File 2.
Senate Enrolled Act 1 being original Senate File 2. An act relating to telecommunications, extending the sunset date of the Wyoming Telecommunications Act, making conforming changes, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 1, being original Senate File number 2. I have so signed. The next Senate Enrolled Act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 2 to Senate File 4. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
Senate Enrolled Act number 2 being original Senate File 4. An act relating to workers' compensation, amending the Extra Hazardous Industries Code to conform with changes to the North American Industry Classification System Manual, repealing a related law and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 2, Senate Enrolled Act number 2, being original Senate File number 4. I have so signed. The next Senate Enrolled Act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 3, being Senate File 23. The reading clerk will read the Enrolled Act.
Senate Enrolled Act number 3 being original Senate File 23. An act relating to courts, transferring responsibility and oversight of the court supervised treatment programs from the Department of Health to the Wyoming Supreme Court, specifying terms and conditions of the transfer, amending application, approval, and expense requirements for treatment programs, making conforming amendments, renumbering provisions, requiring reports, providing for rulemaking, and providing for an effective date, be enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 3, being original Senate File number 23. I have so signed. The next Senate Enrolled Act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 4, being Senate File number 77. Reading clerk, please read the Enrolled Act.
Senate Enrolled Act number 4 being original Senate File 77. An act relating to city, county, state, and local powers, repealing statutes authorizing the use of apprenticeship programs on public works projects, repealing bid preferences for contractors who utilize the apprenticeship program, repealing reporting requirements, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 4, being original Senate File number 77. I have so signed. Chief Clerk, does that clear the deck? Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, the 14th day of February, 2023.
Committee announcements. Oh, yeah, as well, Representative Stivar has a letter that he would like folks to consider signing. And so if you'd stop by his desk, you can decide whether you'd like to sign that or not. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs will meet tomorrow upon new recess in E003 to hear 3 bills. Senate File 16, State Employee Moving Expenses, Senate File 21, High Occupancy Vehicle Lanes, and Senate File 38, Special License Plates Organ Donation.
Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your House Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, will meet tomorrow upon noon recess, and we will consider Senate File 87, Natural Resource Funding Large Project Threshold Increase, Senate File 106, 2023 Large Project Funding, Senate File 58, Sutton Archaeological Site Administration, and if we have time, Senate File 178, Mountain Lion Pursuit Seasons.
Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, agricultural, meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. We will consider Senate File 29, brucellosis management updates, and Senate File 102, engrossed Food Freedom Act amendments.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 3, revenue, will meet tomorrow, Valentine's Day, at 8 a.m. We have a couple lovely bills. One is Senate File 61, engrossed legislator per diem, and followed by Senate Joint Resolution 3, property tax exemptions for the elderly and infirm. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Appropriations will meet on adjournment tomorrow to hear Senate File 138, Senate File 94, Senate File 96, and we'll also hear Senate File 66. Also, your Joint Conference Committee number 1 for House Bill 1, Senate File 1, your supplemental budget will meet on adjournment in the Appropriations Committee room.
And just one final note, I'll have a pretty good bulge of introductions of Senate files tomorrow. And I'll have a smaller one Wednesday, and then it'll be a very much of a trickle after that. So committee chairman, you're about to get the load you'll have, and you'll be able to work through it. With that, you have heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. The House is adjourned until 10 a.m., February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2023.